do you have a vision of what might happen in the future?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I try to touch on that in the last chapter of the book called What If the Future of Media? And it's always difficult to get a hold of it because it moves so fast. You know, when I started, of course, in radio, television was just beginning, but it was around. And the old black and white sets,
Right.
and those old images, which we still play today. And then, of course, into color, and then satellites and videotape to improve the technology of how we gather news, how we produce programs, all of that. And now, of course, the internet, Twitter, all of these things. But when I was working in radio, I remember people saying television will never work because it's that box in the corner. Who's going to sit there and watch that? Well, and then the other thing was radio will die. Now they're saying television is dead. It's not, because television is still the core producer of everything people watch on the internet. I mean, when you think of what you watch on the internet and on your iPhone, quite frequently you're watching television. And that's how television is sustaining itself now and will for a long time. Also, the bigger screens at home. The programs with much more refined photography than we had before. The same way the movies expanded to big screens when they had the threat from television. So eventually what seems to happen is that all of these media converge. And we're seeing that happen now. Because now if you're watching television on your favorite program, they're probably going to say at the end, and you can watch us on ctv.ca or cbc.ca or whatever. Send us your questions.
And you can buy Lloyd's book at your local bookstore.
That's right. Yes.
In your local independent bookstore?
Yeah, your local
Yeah,
independent
hopefully
bookstore.
there's one. Yeah.
So that everything is converging now. And obviously what happens in our sort of Darwinian society, the strongest survive. And my sense is that television will survive for a very long time because it still is the strongest instrument of communication we have. It became that in the 60s when people realized that this was a powerful medium of communication after the Kennedy assassination particularly, and became the source for entertainment and information for the community, where you would gather around, you'd call people into a room, or call your neighbors in and say, come watch the Stanley Cup, come watch the Grey Cup, come watch the Super Bowl. They still do that. Television is still a force for communal living, you know. And I think it's the one thing we still have that does that. With the internet, it's very personal, very private. Television still does that. So television is kind of the universal, to me, the universal mode of communication that will be around for a long time. People don't want to be alone forever, and you know, you want your private space, but there are certain things you want to do with other people. One of those is watching maybe a football match, or a Stanley Cup final or something like that. I mean, I'm always saying to my wife, you know, oh, let's have so-and-so over and we'll watch the Grey Cup or something, you know.
The Oscars.
Because it's one of those
The
things you do
Oscars for
together.
sure, right.
Yeah.
But I'm right.
The Oscars
Or the
for
Oscars, another one, the Oscars, yeah. Yeah, that kind of thing. And that's what television is now. That's what television has become. Sort of the principal instrument of community.